Hello there. I'm Santa the Grey, and you probably clicked on this video because you want to learn how to record an audiobook or a Podfic or any other solo voiceover project and have it sound at least somewhat professional. Let me give you a disclaimer right at the beginning. This tutorial is not for high-level professional work, something I don't have any experience with. It's for personal and fan projects or things of that caliber. There's obviously loads of tutorials about voice acting on YouTube, and there's lots you can learn from them, but I've found that most of them focus on getting into the voice actor business and on producing content with the specific requirements of places like Audible in mind. And when I started a couple of years ago, I just wanted to record a decent podfic, or a voiceover for an animatic. And a lot of these tutorials for aspiring professionals just don't answer the right questions. That's where I come in. I will show you how to record a podfic or audiobook, but without making it overly complicated or costing you lots of time or money. This is a really fun and fulfilling hobby to have, and though it might seem a little daunting, it really isn't that difficult or time-consuming. So let me go through what you need to do this and how to do it, all the way to the publishing process. Starting with Chapter 1, your technical recording setup. So, let me start this with one question. How do you like the narration of this video so far? Does it sound alright? Any horrible background noise? Is the sound of my voice enjoyable, or is the lack of quality a distraction? I'm guessing you didn't notice anything too bad about it, and that's the goal I'm shooting for here. There's so many guides and tips online telling you to buy the expensive microphone, or better yet, go to a professional recording studio, or at least have a dedicated recording room at home with massive soundproofing. I'm just here to tell you, relax. None of that is necessary. I'm recording all of this with a €60 USB microphone standing in my living room. The thing is, when it comes to sound quality, it's all about diminishing returns. This microphone sounds noticeably better than my wireless headset, which sounds noticeably better than the one from my phone. But does a €400 microphone sound noticeably better than this? I'd argue that it doesn't, or at least not in any way that matters for what we're trying to do here. I know, any Reddit audiophile will tear me to shreds for this, but here it is. Most people will not hear the difference. Go look up some YouTube videos with microphone comparisons. Unless it is specifically pointed out and directly compared, it's difficult, to say the least, to hear any significant difference, especially considering the price difference. I'm sure the €600 Rode microphone is better than mine, but is it 15 times better? Will the average listener be able to enjoy your work 15 times more? Personally, I doubt it. And the thing is, most people don't even listen to your work on high-fidelity headphones. You know this. We listen to audiobooks from our phone speakers while doing the dishes, or in the car on the highway, or with one earbud in during yard work. In those conditions, you simply don't hear the tiny imperfections in your recording. So like I said, relax. We're trying to have fun creating something for others, not build half a recording studio. I'm sorry for going on a bit of a rant here, but I've seen people get talked into buying expensive shit they definitely don't need, and it's annoying me to no end. And if you want a bit of general life advice, don't invest any money into a hobby before you're way into it. Don't buy professional running shoes if you don't already like jogging, and don't buy a microphone if you've never even tried recording anything. Maybe you don't even like it. You have a gaming headset? A webcam or a smartphone? You can record a podfic. I'll show you how to do it. Just go ahead and try it first. And if you have fun and you want to do more, then you can consider buying a microphone. As for which microphone you ought to buy, once it comes to that, I'm not going to shout out any brand, because fuck brands. It really depends on what you can get your hands on in your area and what your price range is. I'd say that anything in this €60 to €100 range is going to be perfectly fine. What I can recommend is getting a nice microphone arm so you can maneuver your microphone to any position you need it and have it safely attached to your desk without transmitting every vibration. Don't go for the cheapest, most flimsy ones, though. They kinda suck and break after a while. It does pay to get a sturdy one. But again, this is something you can do once you're really invested into this hobby. With that out of the way, let's talk about your recording environment. This is actually a lot more important than your microphone. Even the best microphone won't give you clean audio when you're recording in a busy train station, or the rain is pattering against your window, or the radiator is hissing and clanging. You want to record in a room that is as quiet as can possibly be. I know, shocker. I realize, of course, that this isn't an option for every living situation. If there's noisy people or animals in your living space, it might help to record late at night. Or hell, even in your car, in a parking lot, if you use your phone. If you do have a USB microphone, you can actually attach it to your phone as well, using an adapter. Some schools or libraries also offer office spaces you can use for free, if that's an option for you. Again, we're not going for professional quality, we're going for clear audio that is enjoyable to listen to. It doesn't have to be flawless, you don't need a professional studio. When it comes to the room you're using, the fewer hard surfaces it has, the better. A thick carpet and curtains help a lot. A windowless room tends to be much quieter in general. A big closet is great if you have one. I personally record in my living room, which has a carpeted floor and curtains, and that's honestly enough. Again, don't worry too much about it. The quieter the better, but it shouldn't stop you from recording just because there's a little noise in the background. Which leads me to Chapter 2, Recording and Editing. Now that you've chosen your microphone and you have a reasonably quiet room, we're going to start recording. There's plenty of applications that let you record audio, and I haven't used all of them, so I can only tell you what I'm using and why. I use the program Audacity because it's free, has no ads, and is specifically made for audio recordings. It works on Windows, macOS, and Linux, so it should be available for you. For video editing, I use DaVinci Resolve, mostly just to turn an MP3 into a video, because that's needed for YouTube. If you record something on your phone, you can just use the inbuilt audio recording app and later import the file into Audacity on your computer. If you don't have access to a computer at all, there's definitely apps for Android and iOS that do similar things. I've never used them, so I can't give you any recommendations. If you know the perfect one, let us know in the comments. One more disclaimer. In this tutorial, I'm going to show my process. As I'm fundamentally lazy, my prime directive is always make it good enough, with as little work as possible. This is an unpaid hobby after all, and it's supposed to be fun for you as well. My goal is to minimize the annoying work aspect and maximize the fun recording aspect. I'm sure there are plenty of ways to do this more professionally or elegantly, but once again, I'm going to argue that it's all about diminishing returns. How much better is it going to be with more professional methods? Or is the extra work going to spoil the fun? Anyway, let's start with the basic tutorial of Audacity, since I've suggested you use it. It's really not very complicated, which is part of why I'm using it. Start by making sure you have the right audio device selected. It's one of those things I can't help but check every time I record. Because if the wrong microphone is selected, you'll waste a lot of time. Click on Audio Setup and select the microphone you want to use in the drop-down menu under Recording Device. The playback device is just what you're going to use to listen to the recording later. You can choose that now or later. Set the recording channel to mono recording channel. With that out of the way, you can click on the big red button and start recording. Now, take a breath. No, not literally, because we're going to be absolutely quiet for a bit. What we're doing is recording the silence, or more accurately, the room tone. We're going to remove this background noise, at least as much as possible, later, so we first need to give the program a sample of what the background sounds like. Longer is better, so I usually let it run for almost a minute, even if a couple seconds are generally enough. Once you've recorded your silence, click on the Stop square. Now, we're finally ready to record. Click on Record Again and start recording. This is the fun part, which also means that you have to figure it out for yourself. This is your artistic expression. It's called voice acting for a reason, and you have the freedom to choose however you want to approach the text you're reading. I'd encourage you to listen to some audiobooks or podcasts or whatever genre you're working on. Listen closely and pay attention to what other voice actors do and how you like it. Do they do voices for every character, or do they feel like that's distracting? Do they keep the narration neutral, or do they inject emotion even there? There's really no wrong way of doing this, so I'd encourage you to just try what feels best. You can refine your personal style as you go along. A little side note here, I would definitely encourage you to read the whole text first before you start recording, just so you have a better understanding of what you're getting into. And knowing the story can sometimes inform your acting choices, even in the first scene. One thing I can tell you, if you're just starting out, I'm willing to bet that you're going too fast. It's not about reading the text quickly. That may be impressive, but not very nice to listen to. Breathe. Say the words clearly and at an even tempo. Don't be afraid to leave pauses, between sentences and between paragraphs. Remember, if your listeners feel like it's too slow, they probably won't, they can always speed up the playback. But slowing it down usually just sounds bad. So err on the side of reading a little too slowly. Another really important thing, you don't have to read the whole text perfectly or in one go. Everyone misreads things or stumbles over words. That's perfectly normal. And a lot of the time, especially when you're recording a dialogue scene, maybe even with more than 2 people, it's impossible to predict who says what and in what way. So don't ever feel bad about making mistakes. And sometimes it's not even a mistake. Sometimes you just want to try a different take on a sentence. That's acting, after all. No one expects you to just read a whole book perfectly on the first try. That doesn't mean that we're leaving those mistakes in for the listener to hear. That wouldn't make for a very pleasant experience. I'll go over the editing process next, but first, let's remember my prime directive. Make it good enough with as little work as possible. The goal is to make the recording process fun and not frustrating, and the editing easy and quick. So here's what I do. Every time I mess up a line or word, I click my tongue, like so. You can also clap or make any other sort of sharp noise. It's just about creating a distinctive shape on the waveform. You'll see why in a minute. After the noise, I just repeat whatever I just messed up, starting from the last moment with silence in the recording. This doesn't need to be a long silence. Even a fraction of a second will do. You don't have to go back and re-record the whole paragraph or even sentence. See how I briefly paused behind the word paragraph? That would be a perfect point to start again. For example, this is an example sentence, one that I'm only recording so that you get the picture. Get it? There's no need to put in work re-recording things that no one will ever hear. You also don't have to record a whole chapter in one session. As long as the background noise is roughly the same on each occasion, you can spread out your recordings over weeks if you want. Sometimes there's just not enough motivation for a chapter with 10k words. Go at your own pace, sentence for sentence, until you're done. This leads us to the editing. All right, now that you've recorded everything, we're going to edit out any mistakes or noises that we don't want. I've recorded a couple of sentences here of a story that I'm writing, just so that we have something to work with. I'm also going off script for this one, just because it's easier to record, so forgive me if I'm a little scatterbrained or whatever. We're going to zoom out first, here with the zoom out button, so we can see what we have to work with. And we can fully ignore this first clip right now. We're going to work with that later. This whole thing is called the waveform, because of the waves. And let's zoom in a little more. And what we're looking for now, this is the whole recording, as you can see. What we're looking for now are these distinctive shapes that we made with the clicking sound, right? And you can scroll through the whole thing pretty quickly and you can see these really easily. That's sort of the point. This is the clicking sound. You can have a little listen by selecting a selection. That's the little tongue click. That's why we made it. So because of how we recorded this, I now know that after the little click, there's the correction, and before the click, there's the mistake. Let's see, what did I do wrong here? While we are still docked at starbait. Oh, starbait. No, that's not right. And here's the correction. While we are still docked at starbase 117, receive. Awesome. So now I know I can delete the mistake I made. The whole this part of the sentence at least, or the start of the sentence, and the pause, and just start right here at this beginning of the correction. Now, important to remember is here that we're leaving in this little line, which is just the little breath I took before I said the sentence. If you leave that in, it essentially masks the cut entirely, because this inhale is at the natural point where it would actually occur. So by cutting right after it and then slotting in the correction, you're essentially masking that anything is missing at all. So now I'm pressing delete on my keyboard. I have actually hotkeys for this, but you can press delete. Boom. And now we have the inhale and the correction right next to each other. While we are still docked at Starbase 117, receiving some last-minute supplies. Oh, receiving some last-minute resupply. Oh, made another mistake in the same sentence, huh? Well, that certainly wasn't on purpose, so we can continue right here. But you see, this sounds by an urgent mission. While we are still docked at absolutely inaudible that there ever was a cut. Something that's obvious, but that people forget sometimes. The audience can't see your waveform, and they can't see the edits. So if you do it right, no one will be able to tell if you recorded everything in one perfect take or if you stumbled over every word. So don't stress too much about it. Anyway, it seems we made another mistake in the same sentence, actually. How messy. Let's see. So once again, we can see here is the start of the correction, right after the click. Receiving some last-minute resupplies. Receiving some last-minute resupplies. So I'm guessing the mistake had to happen in this section here, because here's the last little moment where there's no sound, right? That's what we're looking for. That is where the problem started, I'm guessing. Let's see. Receiving some last-minute supplies. What supplies? Receiving some last-minute resupplies. Supplies instead of replies. Okay, well, I can see how that happened. And we're gonna, once again, start the selection at the start of the mistake, pull it all the way over to the start of the correction, leave the breath in right here, and delete, and boom, is 117. While we are still, even though we made two mistakes in one sentence, now we can listen to the whole sentence as if it never happened at all. While we are still docked at Starbase 117, receiving some last-minute resupplies, we have an important change in our crew roster. See, nothing happened. I read that whole thing in one go, absolutely no problem. Isn't that just grand? Alright, now that we've deleted all mistakes, we can scroll slowly back through the whole thing, checking that there's not any clicks left, any mistakes left. Nope, looks clean. And we go back to the beginning, to this empty section I promised you to talk about earlier. We can zoom out a little again. Now this empty section here is just the room tone, right? We recorded what the room sounds like when we're not talking. So just the slight hum of my computer or whatever. It's barely visible, if at all, on the waveform, which is all right. We still know it's there. You can hear it if you're really listening to this loudly on your headphones. What we're going to do now is select this first empty section. Click on Effect, on Noise Removal and Repair, and Noise Reduction. Because what we're going to do now is give Audacity the information essentially it needs to remove it, right? We're going to tell the program, this is the stuff we want to get out of the whole recording. This is the noise we want to remove. And we've already selected this, so now we can click on Get Noise Profile. Now it's selected that. And we're going to select the whole recording by clicking here in this section, or by pressing Ctrl-A, and again on Effect, Noise Removal and Repair, Noise Reduction, and now we're going to remove the noise. Now these settings down here are something you'll have to fine-tune on your own, as they're dependent on how noisy your recording environment is. And try applying the noise reduction to a smaller section first if you're unsure, and see if it reduces the background noise to an acceptable level. The basic settings are 6, 6, and 0. If you're really unsure, just use those, or maybe adjust it a little. You'll see once you get there. It's really not that you can do a whole lot wrong here. I just suggest leaving frequency smoothing at 0 because that can introduce artifacts if you don't. Okay, let's click OK then because we've selected our values. And now the noise reduction is applied and the noise is mostly gone. Now that that's done, we can delete this whole first section because it's just empty. Press delete again. And we are gonna select everything again, Control A, and pull the whole project back to 0 if you don't want a big pause at the start of your recording. And that's essentially it. Now the project is entirely free of mistakes and ready to be exported, which we're going to do by pressing on File, Export Audio, or Control-Shift-E. Then you can select a title for it, entire project, and then export, which will create an MP3 file. Congratulations, your audio project is done. The hard part is over. Now you get to share it with others. Which leads me to the next step, Chapter 3, Publishing your audio. Now that you have your MP3 file, you have to decide where to upload it. While doing it for the love of the game is honorable, fandom is a community effort too, and everyone likes getting lots of views and especially comments. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Wait, who put that in the script? Anyway, the question is where and how you want your work to be available, so more is generally better. I'm not going to do a step-by-step manual for each platform and method, not just because I'm lazy, but because some of these hosting platforms are constantly changing. First of all, if you're recording Podfics for fanfiction, it's customary to create a new work on AO3 for your Podfic, or archive of our own for the uninitiated. The biggest archive for fan works, and the only one worth talking about. Sorry, fanfiction.net fans. Just use the same title as the fic you recorded with the Podfic indicator before it. You can also copy the summary and all the tags. You want the same people who are looking for the fanfiction to find your Podfic, after all. You can add a couple of Podfic-specific tags, since people might be looking for those too. When you create a new work on AO3, you can click this check mark to indicate that your work is connected to another work, which you can then link. It'll look like this in the finished thing. You want to give credit to the author, after all. Which reminds me, you also have to get permission to record a fic first. Not because anyone will sue you, but because anything else would just be bad etiquette. Like I said, a fandom is a community, and if you're going to create something using someone else's art, you have to ask for permission first. 99% of authors will gladly have their fic be made available as Podfic, but if someone doesn't feel comfortable with that, it's their right to deny you permission and your duty to accept that. Some authors even give blanket permission in the tags or in their bio, and you can always ask them in a comment or on social media. Now, what's the point of putting it on AO3? It's a great place to host various links and show potential listeners how and where your Podfic is available. You can even host the audio on AO3 itself and maybe some art related to the fic, with permission, that is. If you're recording a fanfiction with multiple chapters, you should create chapters in your own work as well. This way your listeners can follow your Podfic on AO3 to get emails whenever you update and see how far you've progressed. It also doesn't hurt to let people know how long your recording is. How elaborate your work looks is up to you and your skill with HTML. I personally only post the artwork and all the links to the Podfic, but I've seen some cool layouts. Scroll through some Podfics on AO3 and get inspired. Now, what are these links I've been talking about? You can upload your Podfic anywhere, of course, but the easier and more multifaceted the access, the more people can potentially listen. I, for one, make my Podfics available in the following ways. As MP3 download. Upload all of your files into the hosting service of your choice. Google Drive or Proton Drive, for example. Make sure to use a sensible naming scheme, please. You can then share an access link to the folder. You can also host it on the archive just for Podfics called Gingerly. I'll leave a link in the description. As podcast on Spotify. Now, I hate Spotify as much as the next guy, but since most people use it, it's a convenient way to listen to a podcast. Look for creators.spotify.com and go from there. Link in the description. Uploading it on Spotify also lets you create an RSS feed link, which means anyone with the podcast app can find your Podfic. As video on YouTube. Uploading something on YouTube is easy enough. You just have to convert your MP3 to a video format first, which isn't too challenging either. Like I said in the beginning, I personally used the program DaVinci Resolve and add a picture to the MP3, which technically makes it a video. That's something any video editing software can do, though. You can also sort your YouTube videos into a podcast, which makes them more easily available on the YouTube Music app. Again, you can do all of these things, or even more, or hell, just keep the files to yourself if you don't want to share. It's up to you. Like I've said earlier, there's not really a wrong way to do it, just some conventions. Have a look around on AO3 and YouTube and pick and choose the ways of sharing that make sense to you. You can always adjust and add other methods of distribution later if you want. Either way, congratulations, you just successfully posted your Podfic. You're done and can relax at last. Until the gnawing hunger to record more is back, that is. Anyway, if I can send you off with just one thing, the TLDR, if you will. You're new to this. Don't fret about achieving some sort of standard or level of quality. As cheesy as it sounds, the most important thing is to have fun. To create something and share it with others is always a little nerve-wracking, but I promise you, it's worth it. One last thing before I go. If anyone has additional tips and tricks, feel free to leave them in the comments. I definitely didn't cover everything to its full extent, so I'd really appreciate it. That also goes for any questions you might have. I'll try to answer as many as I can. Farewell and sweet dreams.